think I'm gonna have a controversial opinion on this one. Welcome back, horror fans, cinephiles, Giallo enthusiasts. This is Tanner Leeser, your host for The King and Giallo. Let's do another unscripted movie review. I just got finished watching The Weekend Murders, 1970, directed by, excuse me if I'm off with some of these names, Michele Lupo. Starring Anna Moffo, Gastone, Moschin, Ida Galli. Oh, I didn't even recognize that was her. Lance Percival, Peter Baldwin, Chris Chittell, Giacomo, Rossi, Stuart. Oh, I didn't recognize that was him. Beryl Cunningham, I recognized her. Orchidea De Santis, Robert Hundar, Ballard Berkeley, Richard Caldecott. I don't know why I listed all the names. I never do that. Anyway, so this is a 1970 Italian Giallo film, which feels like it's trying to be a British murder mystery. Let me get a few things out of the way. I watched this on YouTube, and the version that I saw, occasionally the sound would cut out. And then when I get to the climax, and it cut out, like, a lot. But still, got through it. But, okay, what can I say about this? I actually enjoyed this movie. First 10 minutes, I was kind of starting to be like, okay, too many characters. I'm not going to get any of their names. The comedy wasn't really hitting me. The comedy at first was like all coming from the editing and the direction. But yeah, just the way it would go to these dramatic like crash zooms and cut to people was humorous, but it also kind of felt like it was trying hard. But okay, so what is this? This is like Knives Out, but not as good. This is a bunch of rich British aristocrats, nobles, and the whoever died, and they're all supposed to be listening to the reading of the will. The local cop, the constable, who's kind of an oaf doofus, he gets left like a bunch of azaleas, and then everybody else who's like a sibling to the old man, who we never meet, forgot what they got. I legitimately forgot what they got. And then he's like his only daughter who decided to leave when she was young. He's like, well, I won't leave you a penny then. And then he leaves everything to his niece, I think. And she walks out, and the cop walks out, and they're all like talking about like, and this one kid who's like Baron, he's like, hey, well, she's really young, and young people don't really write wills, so if something were to happen to her, all the money would have to go to us. It's split evenly. Like, how could you? And he's like, well, we're all thinking it. So what's funny is it starts, and it's just like, good, happy day. The cop is riding to work on his bicycle, takes a bit of milk from the milk float, drinks some, puts it back, pays the driver, off to, he shows up, and the whole family is like playing golf, and then they whoosh, and then like in the bunker, and it reveals a dead body, and oh my gosh, so dramatic. And through the course of investigating, all of a sudden they're like, well, let's go back because we've had 3 murders already. What? And then for the next hour, the movie is recapping like the family arriving, all this drama, everybody who died. And again, this is like the first 10-15 minutes, things that I was starting to be like, I don't know if I'm gonna like this. The one guy Georgie boy, who came up with the idea, he's like mama's boy. He's got the really tyrannical mom, and it's clear he's got some like Freudian thing going on, which the movie really does show that at one point. He fakes his death early on. Like, they come in and he's in a bathtub, like, dead, and he has a whole like gash and everything, but no, he rips it off. Who the fuck has a fake gash that they just are like, oh, this is gonna be a real hoot at the next family get together? So he fakes his death, and then they find like the butler in a hunting box thing, and he's like got blood coming out of his mouth, and he's dead. And like, oh my god, no, he fell asleep, and then I guess Georgie boy put like fake blood on him. And I'm just like, dude, is this gonna be the movie? Like, this is not funny. This is really overstaying its welcome, these jokes. It's getting old. And then we, cut to them reading the will, and when we follow the sergeant, I think his name was, what was his name, real quick, just because I actually did like him. I did like the cops. Not Inspector Gray. Sergeant Aloysius Thorpe. Sergeant Thorpe goes to check on the azaleas, and he's received like 200 like individual plants. And as he's like counting them all up, all of a sudden he finds the butler dead, and everybody's called in, and this is when then the comedy got better. Someone goes, well, at least this time we can't say it was the butler. Ha ha ha. So, okay, we've got a murderer on our hands. And another thing I have to point out. So I'm not going to go through everything. Wait. When all the family is arriving, and this is again something that kind of reminded me of Knives Out. This one guy shows up, and he shows off his new wife, who is Beryl Cunningham. So if you don't know, the whole family, being old school British aristocracy, is all white, and Beryl Cunningham is black. And so the moment they see her, it's just like cutting to everybody's reaction. They're all just like, oh my god. And it was funny. Obviously, like, that's not cool, but it was so funny how it did that. And he makes a comment about how, like, marrying her was worth it just to see the look on all their faces. They do the will reading, and there's kind of this idea of like, well, she shouldn't get anything. She's not family. Anyways, then we get the actual inspector called in, who is, what did I say his name is? Inspector Gray, played by Lance Percival. And he's good too. I did like Sergeant Thorpe, but he kind of is chewing the scenery a bit, which is funny because he's got these big teeth, and his strap goes, hey, he's always like, oh yeah. It's just like the most stereotypical dumb British cop. But the detective and the sergeant worked really well off of each other, especially because the inspector is supposed to be this, yes, I see, Scotland Yard detective who's the bright one, and he's always got to tell the sergeant to, like, stop being such a dummy. And, like, he's going to interview everybody, and he's asking if the sergeant can write shorthand, and he can't. And so he's like, well, I've got a recorder. And he's like, you get the recorder and the microphone. He turns it on, and he just goes up to everyone. He's holding the microphone to them, so the inspector's trying to talk, and the sergeant is just standing right next to him with a microphone. And then he then goes into this middle of the room, and he's holding it out in case anybody else wants to speak. And then this person talks, and so he walks up and holds the microphone up to them. And it's like the bit got old, but it was still kind of funny. And I was like, okay, if this was live theater, this would potentially be funnier. I don't know. That whole bit goes on. And then, like, he's interviewing this one guy, and the guy has a camera, and Sergeant Thorpe starts asking him questions about the camera, like, what does this do? What is that? Oh, so, like, what's the range on? Oh, so it's 2 meters. And he's just like, can you stop asking him questions about, like, photography? Tells him to get back to the recorder, and we realize that the tape, it's not film, but the tape has just been, like, spooling out and piling on the ground. There's a really cool part that happened earlier when the inspector shows up, and he's interviewing one of the women out in the front yard, and you hear a gunshot, and this weird ornament in the front yard gets hit, and it's not a wind chime, but it's like a giant weird it's like a series of circles around this thing, and it gets hit, and it just starts spinning, and it's shot from behind it, looking through at them as this thing is spinning, and then it stops right where there's a bullet hole through one of them. And there was cool stuff like that. I will say, as odd as this movie is, and I know a lot of Giallo veterans who've seen a lot of Giallo movies, and they get to the Weekend Murders and they're like, yeah, it's skip it, it's not good. Here's the thing. It's not really, it does have a lot of Giallo things. There's even a part where someone's stalking around with black gloves and everything, and it turns out that it's Georgie boy, and he's being a peeping Tom. And the movie actually gave us nudity. He's spying on one of the maids, and she actually gets topless, and I did not expect that, because again, this movie was just operating like a British murder mystery type thing, and those are very clean, very respectable Agatha Christie type plots. And this felt the most like of any Italian movie, and specifically a Giallo, that was trying to emulate being a British movie. And like the fourth victim kind of had that, but whereas the setting and the performances were arguably more believable, this one it just kind of captured it, and I like that. But it also was very Italian. Like I said, the way it was, how it would just cut to everyone's reactions with crash zooms. I was like, dude, this is like a bad spaghetti western, and I kind of really liked it. A few things I'll say about the movie is, in terms of directing, and then from a script, sometimes you can really only make a movie as good as what the script allows. Not always. Some, if you're a really, really good director. But the script is fine. Very generic kind of British murder mystery. Like I said, I haven't seen a lot of these, but it did feel like it was on par, maybe a little like lesser. The directing, though, was pretty cool. It was very well thought out. A lot of the shots were really good. When the will is getting read, there's a shot from behind the lawyer who's reading it, who's sitting at the desk, and then it's facing the room, and you're seeing everybody lined up. That looked good. I mean, there was a lot of other shots too, but there was a few points where I was just saying like, wow, okay, so the director knows what he's doing. And then there would be a few shots where it would be on this person, and then it would go over to this person, and meanwhile there's like a mirror, and you're able to see a third person through the mirror, and things were set very well. Things were shot very well. Things were edited fairly well. There was a few times where it felt like there were pieces missing, and I don't know if that literally was there are pieces missing here, or if it was just edited that way. Let me say the comedy. A lot of it went to the performances. Like at one point, I was like, okay, I don't like this, and then it got funny, and a lot of the like lines, I can't remember all of the lines, but some of them were really funny.
Georgie, huh? A bath and off to bed.
Oh, really, Mummy? I'd much rather take a shower.
You're so funny. Such a jolly clown. What nonsense. Only animals and Americans get washed standing up, but a gentleman takes a bath.
When the one guy comes in and they're interviewing him with the camera, and they're saying like, oh, like, she was shot at, and he says like, well, something about the pistol, and he's like, how did you know it was a pistol? Well, you said it was a pistol. Like, I never said it was a pistol. I said she was shot at. And behind him is the display of weapons with the pistol missing, and he's like, well, you see, when you mentioned it, I noticed the pistol was missing, and that's what I realized.
Obviously, there's a gun missing. I'm a bright boy, you see.
Okay, that's not bad. But the part that I thought was the funniest was, and again, I don't know if this was just cut and like there was like more to this, but a scene ends and it cuts to, the scene starts, no, I'm busy. He's like, anyway.
Otherwise, I don't know where it'll all end. Promise me, Georgie, my good child.
No, I'm busy.
The way he said it, it just felt like, it reminded me of acting on the fly, just like, okay, so then you're just gonna cut here and just be in like mid conversation, be like, oh, okay, no, I'm busy. So, anyways,
no, I'm busy.
I don't know. Okay, what else will I say about this? I won't spoil it. I actually won't spoil it, but I will say that the ending reveal, not who it was, because that part kind of got botched with the version I watched, but how they pulled it off was really cool. Had to do with the observatory, however you want to say it, with like a telescope, and there was like I'll say this, there was like a M16 or M4 or some sort of military rifle inside the telescope that was on like a timer that it was aimed, and it would go off. I'm like, that's pretty fucking cool. And then I think when the third person gets killed, second or third person, I don't recall, they hear a gunshot and they break down the door, and the guy's laying there, dead with the pistol. And this was where then like the movie got like pretty interesting, because the detective is like, oh my goodness, open and shut case, he killed himself out of grief, like he wanted to, this was his plan, but everything changed when I showed up. And he's kind of patting himself on the back like, yep, I solved it. And as he's saying all this, the sergeant, who's an idiot, is kind of just like, he's like looking around the crime scene, and At one point, everybody leaves except for him, and then they hear a thud, and the detective runs back in, and he's like, what's going on? And essentially he was like, oh, I tried to see if like how like loud of a noise it would make. He's like, well, it was really loud, like that's why I came in here. And as he keeps talking and laying out his theory, Sergeant Thorpe is like going to the dumbwaiter, and he's kind of like making paces, and he paces over the body, and he goes to a plant, and he's looking back, and he has an idea, and he goes back to the dumbwaiter, and he starts going down, and the detective's like, wait, what are you doing? Where are you going? Like, you're acting foolish. And he's like, just stay right there. And he leaves, and then you all of a sudden hear like rewinding, and then you hear a gunshot, and he turns back where he heard the gunshot. He finds a tape recorder downstairs that's like with a line going up, and there's like a little tiny little piece of a speaker that was hidden in the plant, and he figures out that there was a gunshot recording that was playing on this tape like an hour into this tape. The killer killed this guy, shot him with a silencer, staged the body to look like, you know, put the gun in his hand. I think he took the silencer off, so there was like residue of where you would adhere it, and staged the body. And so an hour later, and the door's locked, and he escaped through the dumbwaiter, or she. An hour later, the gunshot sound goes off. They break in, and they can only assume that he had done it himself. And I was like, that's pretty smart. Okay, that's cool. But yeah, and then as it goes along, I'm just trying to think what else to say. There was a funny scene where, like I said, Georgie boy, who I think they were playing up to be really crazy, which I was like, okay, well, it can't be him. Can't be any of these people that they're making out to be really, like there was like he wasn't a butler, but he was like a hired help of something. I don't know if he was a driver, but anytime there was like a murder and they find the body, you know, it would come to everyone's reaction as they're leaning in. Whoa, what happened? And it would cut to him downstairs, like a zoom on him, and he was just always like just mean mugging. It was like, okay, it could be him, but the movie's kind of trying a little hard to make us think it is him. So Georgie boy, he's climbing up the trellis, whatever you call it, and he's like spying on the maid who's getting undressed, boobies, and then he breaks in and he's like trying to like, and she rips the thing off and it's him, and I'm like, yeah, I figured it was him. And he's like, I'm gonna have my way with you, don't say anything or else I'll kill you. And she's just kind of like, oh, you're gonna have your way with me? Well, I mean, all you had to do was ask. And this scene was pretty good. She's like lying on the bed waiting for him, and she calls out that he's a virgin, and he goes to, you know, hop her, and he keeps seeing his mom, so it'll be like the woman laying there, and also it'll be his mom, like and the camera will be like spinning around, making it seem like, you know, just super psychotic. And the woman and he's like freaking out, and then the woman would get up and go over here, and he'll try to approach her, and all of a sudden he sees his mom again just being weird, and ultimately he just leaves the room like crying. And yeah, I was like, okay, that was really psychotic in terms of how they translated that, of like what's going on in this guy's head. Like, yes, he has mommy issues. Yeah, I could have told you that. There's only one other thing I really kind of want to point out then that I can think of, and that was all of a sudden it's like them on the golf course, and I'm like, well, this is kind of like how it started. And it's literally then shot for shot you know, what happened, where one woman takes a hit, you know, they see the hand and they're all like, huh, what? Oh no. And then it cuts back to then, now it's going forward. And I'd totally forgotten that the movie opened and we jumped back to see how we all got there. It was just so funny, because now I'm thinking about how the movie started, where everybody was, you know, like we're following Sergeant Thorpe, and he's just like in this jolly old mood as he's writing his black like, it's a lovely day, isn't it? And it was just like, wait a minute. So they've been like 3 murders deep, and they've been coming back to this house, and he's waking up just like, oh, it's a lovely day, isn't it? That made me crack up. Also, just like, wait, okay, so that's the full context of everything. That changes things up a little bit. Yeah, I won't spoil this one. I will say I didn't get it. I didn't guess who it was, but also there was just a lot of people, and it was kind of hard to really guess who, because there would just be times where all of a sudden it would cut out, like the audio would just cut out, and then you're just like, okay, well, I can't read lips, so I don't know what's going on here. And the climax, like I said, it was just like as Thorpe is explaining things, audio goes out, and then people are talking but can't hear them, and then he calls out who it is, and then all of a sudden the audio goes out, and you get the picture. But so yes, I will say I actually enjoyed The Weekend Murders. If this was on Vinegar Syndrome, Forgotten Gialli, I'd get it. I mean, I'm probably going to get all those box sets anyway, no matter what. But I searched for a home video copy of the movie on Amazon. There was like an old DVD that was like 20 something, 30 something bucks. And I was just like, ooh, yeah, no. Like if the DVD looked like it was a little more recent, I'd probably get it. But just looking at that DVD, I was like, let me look into this. Let me look into it, certainly. But yeah, that's my controversial take, is that I actually enjoyed this movie. In terms of it being, Giallo, like, yeah, I mean, it's Italian crew that made it. It's a Giallo that's trying to be a British murder mystery, which is fine. But there were stuff in there, like I said, the weird psychological stuff with the one kid. There was a little bit of the imagery with the, the black gloves and the stuff and the nudity. Obviously, there's more to a Giallo. The style was certainly there. So it was funny. Basically, I guess what I would say is, if you watch this movie and you haven't, and you're a big Giallo fan, don't go into it with high hopes or high expectations. Just go in trying to have a good time, because it was funny. Like I said, it took a while for me to actually give in to it. At first, I was like, that's not funny. This is kind of stupid. But it got funny. Like I said, the acting, the way it was edited, and then going to just the movie, the directing was good. The music was good. Every time it hits, there's a gunshot. It was silly. It was silly. Like I said, there's sometimes that the movie was kind of trying a little too hard. Like, okay, dude, calm down. But that kind of just made it funnier. I enjoyed this in terms of Giallo comedies, like straight up comedies. I know there are a fair amount. I think this is the only one I've really seen so far. And oh, well, The Editor, which I love that movie, but classic Giallo movies. Yeah, that's all I'll say about this movie. I probably already said a lot. Of course, I always talk for a long time. But yes, that was my opinion. Have you seen The Weekend Murders? What is your take on it if you have seen it? If you haven't seen it yet, but you made it to the end and you heard me talking about it, are you kind of interested to see it? Do you think, I'll skip it? Have you never heard of this movie? And until just now? And I don't know. Are you interested to watch it? You can find it on YouTube, but that the version I found that was from Film and Clips, posted in April 2023. Terrible. I mean, it was fine, but the comments are all people just like, what the fuck, dude? The audio is cutting out. Like, this is like, how can you follow through with an upload if it was like this? But anyways, yes. So let me know what your thoughts are for The Weekend Murders. If you have any questions, thoughts, curiosities, concerns, leave those below in the comments section. I'll try to get back to you. Don't be a dick. But yeah, this is Tanner Leeser for The King in Giallo, and if nothing else, I'll see you next time. Bye.
You must promise me to stop doing these things, you understand? Otherwise, I don't know where it'll all end. Promise me, Georgie, my good child.
No, I'm busy.